Hello everyone, my name is Malay and I am a Dora Plus visiting PhD student um, from India. And today I'm going to talk about the power play between vernacular belief and mainstream Hinduism amongst the Mahishas and the Brahmins in a village called Bagnan in eastern India. And also, you might be wondering why I use the term mainstream Hinduism here instead of just saying institutional Hinduism. That is because Brahminical Hinduism in Bengal has been institutionalized over time, but it is a vernacular form which is separate from other vernacular forms in other parts of India. But since it's the dominant one, as opposed not as opposed to, but coexisting with other forms of vernacular belief, I just call it the mainstream. And the one that I'll be focusing on, that I'll refer to as the vernacular in this case. So now, before I get into the details, let me just virtually take you to Bagnan, the place where I did my fieldwork, and tell you a little bit about the Maestro community. So this is the map of India in this corner, and then you go east, you reach West Bengal, and in the southern part, this is the Howrah district, and there, over there are two Bagnans, one and two blocks, and that's the bigger map of Bagnan too. So as I just showed you, there are like two blocks in Bagnan, and Bagnan 1 is comparatively more urbanized because it's close to the railway station, the police station, the college, and the national highway. Whereas the Bagnan 2, where I did my field work, it's more of a rural place, but both are actually listed under the rural places in the district. And I chose to do my fieldwork in this block because I come from there and I'm more familiar with the people and the place. So, and the two highlighted places you see in the map of Pagnan 2 are the two villages where I did my fieldwork. One of them, the left one, is called Palura. The right one is called, or I'm confused with the direct like sides. The one on that side is called Robibhag. So now, what is the natural landscape of the place like? It's plain and there are no hills or no plateaus. It's but there are two rivers. One of them is called Damodar, which is you can see on the map, and the other one is called Rupnarayan. And people's livelihood here traditionally depends on agriculture, fishery, cattle rearing, and such things. But like these days, people are moving towards the government sector, government jobs like in school, in bank, and such things. But there are still some people who do migrate to other cities, like big cities like Mumbai and Delhi or Bangalore, to do menial labor, like in embroidery industry or in gold jewelry industry. Now, I will give you a little bit about the demography. There are around 160,000 people over there living in this place, and most of them are Hindu, with several clusters of Muslim population here and there. But since my work is mostly on the vernacular practices of Hinduism, I'm just going to give a little bit more detail on the Hinduism practiced here. So there are predominantly three like groups or categories of Hindu castes present here. At the top of the hierarchy is, of course, the Brahmins, the priestly caste, which is like the same in most of the Hindu situations in India. And then there are the Kayasthos, who are almost equal in status with the Brahmins, and they're usually like highly educated and holding a lot of land, and so like moderately rich. And the at the bottom of the hierarchy are the Nomoshudras, which is somewhat equivalent to the Shudra in Vedic caste system, and some of their communities are like Kaura, Bhakti, and such. But like they like in between these two groups there are all sorts of castes that like do not directly fit into the institutional Vedic practice of caste system. So one of the in between castes is the Maestro caste, and they are large in number but minoritized by the hegemony of the Brahmins and the Kayasthas. Though, according to Manusmriti, which is like an ancient legal text in Hinduism, uh, the Mahishas were born of the Kshatriya father, which is pronounced as Kshatriyo in Bangla. Like they are the ruling class, and their mothers were from the Vaishya community, the trading class. But there are other people who also believe that they came from a union between the trading class and the lowest of them all, which is the Shudras. But according to Manusmriti, this community of people are supposed to be, engaged in astronomy, music, and agriculture. But to my knowledge, they are traditionally associated with farming, floriculture, and cattle rearing. And I myself come from a Maestro family, and I know that the Brahmins and the caste was actually looked down upon the Maestro community as a lowly caste. So, and also since rice is the main source of food in this region, you will find this depiction in every like aspect of culture. And what you see on the slide is the making of a ritual object, and which is made out of rice. And in the last picture is it's a ritual called Shuk Pujo. It happens in November, um, the day after Kali Puja, which is also the same time when in North India people celebrate Diwali. And in this ritual, women worship Shuk, which is the planet Venus, and it happens early in the morning before the sun comes up. In the east, Venus comes up before sun, and people like the women worship Shuk to get Sukh, which is happiness, domestic happiness. But that was just a little something about the Maheshwar community. And now that I have given you a little bit of background, I'll just jump into talking about the Thakurs, which you saw in my title of the presentation. Now, the term Thakur exists in many Indian languages, but what it means in Bengali is it means a god or a goddess. It's a gender neutral term for benevolent gods in vernacular Hinduism in Bengal, who are called Dev or Devi in Sanskrit. And any god can be actually called a Thakur. For instance, God Shiva can be called Shiv Thakur, or Goddess Shitala can be called Shitala Thakur. But my presentation will focus mostly on Chandrasekhar Thakur. What you see on the slide is the temple of Chandrasekhar, but he does not live there anymore. And so I'll go to the next slide and show you who Chandrasekhar Thakur is and why he left his temple. So Chandrasekhar Thakur is a regional manifestation of Lord Shiva, one of the major deities in Hinduism. As you can see in the picture, like from the picture, you can see that the symbol or the idol is very similar to Shivalinga in Hinduism. And at the center is Puja, the medium who gets possessed by Chandrasekhar. And on her left is the temple that Chandrasekhar left, and on her right is the current temple, which is Pujor Ghar, which is the room where she does worship Chandrasekhar, and which is actually a room in her own house. And so, why did Chandrasekhar leave this place? Because he demands, or he rather needs, care from his devotees and believers, and something that he was not getting in the temple where he was living earlier. So he moved out of the temple and came to Puja, a lay woman whose devotion really impressed him. And how it started almost a year ago, when she was doing a gondi, which is a ritual encircling of the earlier temple. And then he possessed her body for the first time. And soon after that, he left the temple and went to her house. Now, since Chandrasekhar does not live in the temple anymore, the Brahmins, who were the generational caregivers of Chandrasekhar, they are angry at Puja. And since she's also from the Maheshwar community, so she is traditionally not entitled or to be a host or be in proximity of such a powerful god. So obviously the Brahmins are jealous that Chandrasekhar Thakur chose to go to a Maheshwar girl, and this is where the power play between the vernacular belief of the Maheshwars and the dominant mainstream Hinduism in Bengal upheld by the Brahmins begins. Now, let me show you how different Puja's way of worship is from the Brahmin ways, and I'll play a short 2 minutes video, or maybe 2.5. Thank you. What was happening earlier was the god was getting angry, but we can go on. It's just a little bit more. I mean, we can finish it. Just a little bit left. Okay, thank you so much. Okay, so of course that was like I took multiple clips and put them together for to make it easier in the presentation. But of course you could see there were so many things happening. I'll start from the beginning. So as you can see, the only like mantra that Puja was chanting is Joy Baba Chandrasekhar Charane Pranam, which means I submit myself at the feet of Lord Chandrasekhar. And unlike the Brahmins who have 100 different mantras all in Sanskrit, Puja just calls to the god in Bengali, the vernacular language in which she thinks, and the language of her belief, her love, worship, thought, emotion, everything. And in this video that I just showed, I just told you several clips and put them together. But as you can guess, it was a really long process. And so she starts doing the arati, which is pleasing the god and invoking him to come to take possession of her body and her mind. But by doing an arati, she already transgresses the dominant mainstream norms because traditionally only Brahmin men are entitled to perform an arati. And what you saw a while ago was actually the beginning of a possession event. And when Puja was like standing and talking, she was slowly getting into a trance and allowing the god to come and settle in. But one of the clients got impatient and started asking too many questions already. So Chandrasekhar got really angry. And later in the next part, when Puja was sitting and talking, then Chandrasekhar was telling a client that her son, like she was asking her about her son and why he's like mentally not well. And she was telling her that her son is not well lately because her husband had offended goddess Kali, and her husband. So what happened is her husband had made a mansik, which is a sort of mental contract with a god or a goddess. So he did that to protect their son because there was an accident. A green pea went into his nose, and like there was a lot of trouble. So he entered this mansik with Ma Kali that I'll go give you a puja in Dakshineshwar Kali temple, and but he forgot it later and he didn't honor it. So that's why all of this, like that's why the son was not doing well. Now I will go to the next slide and show what kind of problems puja solves during the possession event. So, of course, in a possession, there are multiple kinds of things that go on, but healing is the most common thing in non institutionalized possession events, which was also happening here. So, Puja was channeling Chandrasekhar Thakur to heal others, but she also offers, other kinds of services like counseling, and she gives suggestions on how to maintain good mental health. And also, people also come with queries regarding job prospects or marriage opportunities. And Chandrasekhar helps people even remember forgotten truths. But sometimes people just come to talk to Chandrasekhar. So, though like being in the presence of a god is like sometimes it's scary and intimidating, but it is still calming and reassuring to know that things are okay, which is coming from the god's mouth. So, for instance, one of the clients called Shiba, I talked to her there, and she went there just to talk to Chandrasekhar and find out if Chandrasekhar was happy with the way she was worshipping him, with her ways of prayers and her devotion. And turns out that a few days ago, when she was praying, God, like Chandrasekhar Thakur, was coming to answer her prayers, but he was coming from a different place, from a different devotee. So in a bit of a hurry, he was in a haste, and the idol that she was worshipping, when he was coming, he accidentally like collided, and the thing came, like fell down and broke, and she was worried that did I do something wrong. And now Chandrasekhar even apologized to her that it was not your fault, it was my fault. I was in a hurry, so don't mind it. And just I'm happy with your, with the way you pray and devote yourself to me. So these are some of the things from some trivia, but to get back into the kind of healing powers that puja practices. So what you see now are the ways of healing that she does, and it's called funkdeva. So that's the only kind of healing that she practices, which is to like blow blessing onto someone, and that blessing is called montora. So it sounds very like it's more of a cognate with mantra in Sanskrit, but it's really different because Sanskrit mantra involves chanting, but here no words or chanting is involved. It's mostly a sort of blessing coming with good intent, mostly that. So there are like several kinds of mantra for healing, and some of them are Fus mantra, Jol mantra, and Belpata mantra. So in Fus mantra, what happens is the medium like blows blessings directly onto you, and in Jol mantra, so I think this one is a Jol, no, this one is a Fus mantra when she's blowing blessings onto her, and the other one is Jal Mantura. So she's holding a bottle of water and she's blowing the blessings into that bottle of water. And there is another one which is Belpata. The leaves that you see are actually called wood apple leaves. That is Belpata. So that happens when like the god takes a few leaves and blows blessings onto it and then give it to you, and then the client keeps it with them all the time for good luck or consume a little bit for healing or to cure any illnesses. So this is the most important part. So now that puja as a lay Mahisho girl has become so popular in the community, the Brahmins were of course angry and jealous. So on the day of the foundation of Puja's new temple, so like the god left that place and came to this new her house, right? So there was a foundation of the new temple. On that day, like the previous night, the Brahmins got like really desperate that like they did not want to let go of the power that they exercise by having this sort of connection with Lord Chandrasekhar, and also they did not want like her to have that kind of power and influence. So during the night, they performed a home and to harm puja. And it's what is a home? A home is actually a sacrificial fire ritual, and these are like just for illustrative purpose. This one I took randomly from the internet, and the other one is actually from a Kali Puja that was happening in my village last year. I took it there. So anyway, the Brahmins were on home and they were waiting for her to fall asleep. And the moment she would fall asleep, they would draw her soul out of her body and disorient her mind at the sacrificial fire. And as a result, she would lose her mind and leave her home in the middle of the night. And this is not the first time something like this has happened actually in that village. So in that same village, there is another temple of Boro Baba, which is like Shani in like, institutional Hinduism. And a few years ago, a woman was chosen by Boro Baba, and she made the mistake of telling other people. And that's when some like gunins are like they practice magic. They can be from the Brahmin community or may even not be from the Brahmin community. But what they did was like they did something, and then she lost her mind and disappeared. And for a very long time, nobody knew what happened to her. But later, Pooja like divined out that she's in Kolkata, living with like she's safe now, and she's living with a family of lawyers as a housemaid. So yeah, so I was talking about how the Brahmins were trying to harm Pooja, but did they succeed? No, because Chandrasekhar kept her safe. Obviously, because Pooja and Chandrasekhar were in a sort of a relationship of mutual care. On the one hand, Pooja was taking care of him and he was happy, and on the other hand, he was also taking care of her by offering her safety and economic stability. And that is why when the Brahmins were trying to harm her, he saved her. How did that happen? So that night, she had dozed off, sitting at the door, like the threshold of the temple room, like the new temple room in her house. And she was not safe because she was not inside the temple, inside the sacred room. So Chandrasekhar sent some ants to bite her and wake her up, but that did not work. And when that did not work, he made a sort of a booming noise in the room, in the cupboard. And that's when she got scared and went inside the room because she felt that something was wrong, but she still didn't know what actually happened. And the next morning, when she went into a trance, Chandrasekhar was really angry at her and her family members because they were so careless about her safety. They knew that this is the night when like a very important thing is going to happen, and they were not careful. So, yeah, so now what is so remarkable about puja as a medium? Of course, she decenters power from the hold of the Brahmin men and advocates for direct encounter with the gods. She believes that anybody can talk to the gods directly and in their own vernacular tongue, although it requires patience, devotion, care, and most importantly, unwavering faith. And the vernacular belief that she embodies is neither merely substantive nor totally interpretive, but it's more emotive. And because interpretation demands an understanding and explanation, but feelings and emotions can't always be understood, and nor do people always try to understand their like everything. And of course, feelings predate understanding. People want to feel safe and reassured first. And the vernacular relationship between the deity and the devotee that puja demonstrates that shows the centrality of emotions, feelings, care, and love in a possession event. And with this, I would like to end here. I had another slide, but I will let it slide for now. Thank you.
So we have 5 minutes for questions and discussion.
Thank you. It's a fascinating case study. I would like to know a little bit more about the context. I wonder about the village and the community. Is it mainly like dominated by Shaiva, Brahmins, or Vaishnava? Is there also this kind of conflict or tension between the two, the Shiva and Vishnu? And then, well, I guess this position as a mode of communication between human and divine, it's not the Brahminic thing to do with it. You must have a woman to practice this. But I wonder why the Brahmins, why they care so much about this case. I guess that there are other temples. The Chandrasekhar is not the single Shiva temple in the village. There must be many of them. But why it has become such a powerful case or important case. It's a wonderful case study, but thinking about the big village, I can imagine it is, and then all the Brahmins. And then, sorry, one more question about these rumors about the Brahmins applying magic to manipulate the woman. From whose perspective this come from? It is. Have you interviewed the Brahmin families, or rather these are people who are around the puja, the lady who speculate about this kind of attacks? Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. So, to answer your question about, okay, first, why do the Brahmins care? Because you see, so this is the temple which is over here, and this that you see is the community gathering place. And this temple is the most important temple in this village because it's the representative temple of the village. And having access to that god is having access to power and influence in the village. But to answer your question about if there is a conflict between Shaivism and Vaishnavism, so actually there is no, so in most of the villages around this place, there is no clear-cut distinction between a Shaivist cult or a cult of people who worship Vishnu, because the slide that I did not show that had a video. So this temple is actually a temple of Narasingha, which is a manifestation of Vishnu. And the video that I had here, I didn't show, is when in that same possession even, the mother of that woman gets possessed by Narasingha, which is Vishnu. And there is, in the possession events, there is always a sort of, kinship between the gods, and there is no that kind of conflict does not exist. So for instance, here she was saying that go to Ma Kali and give offer puja, and then there would also be times when she would say that, or Chandrasekhar would say that you did not offer, you did not pray to Manusha, which is the goddess of poison and snakes. And there are also times when you have to go to Vishnu. So this kind of sympathetic relationship between all the gods exists. So that's also a sort of manifestation of people's belief, I guess. And whose perspective? Yeah, that's actually a very tricky question. And so the thing is, I did not get a chance to talk to the Brahmins because they are not very open to talking about it. But all the interviews that I did, one of them was from the medium. The story that I told was from her aunt, but there were other people in the community, in their neighborhood. They also are. So there was other instance after that. The next day or the day after, there was a neighbor who came and looking at her as if he's doing something to her, and she was possessed by the god again out of nowhere, and she started screaming at him, and people were shocked because that is not her personality as a person, as her own. But that happened in the middle of nowhere outside. But I guess that answers your question. Thank you.